Hello, young scientists. Welcome to another episode of 5th grade life science. Today we're diving into the fascinating world of food webs. By the end of this episode, you'll be able to analyze food webs and identify the roles organisms play in an ecosystem based on their feeding relationships. Let's get started with the basics. What is a food web? A food web is like a map for energy in an ecosystem. It shows how energy flows between the plants, animals, and other organisms. You might already know about food chains. Those are the straight lines that show who eats whom. A food web, though, is a little more complex. It combines many food chains into one big interconnected web. Imagine looking at the coral reef. There's not just one line of energy transfer. There are dozens. That's because most animals eat more than one thing, and they're eaten by more than one predator. Let's explore this idea using an example food web. In this coral reef food web, we have some key players: algae, clownfish, snails, large fish, crabs, and sea turtles. Let's break it down step by step. Producers. The first stop in any food web is the producer. These are organisms that make their own energy, usually through photosynthesis. In our coral reef, algae is a producer. It uses sunlight to create food, forming the foundation of the web. Primary consumers. Next up, we have primary consumers. These organisms eat the producers. In our example, the clownfish and snails are primary consumers because they feed on algae. So the clownfish and snails are primary consumers because they feed on algae. Our secondary consumers. Now we move up to the secondary consumers, which eat the primary consumers. The large fish fills that role when it eats the clownfish or the snails. Tertiary consumers. Finally, we have our tertiary consumers, which are often at the top of the food web. In this case, the sea turtle eats the large fish or crabs, completing the cycle. Here's the cool thing. Many organisms play multiple roles depending on their position in the web. For instance, the clownfish might be eaten by a large fish, but it's also eating algae. The large fish can be a secondary consumer when it eats snails, but becomes prey for the sea turtle. This interconnectedness shows how energy moves throughout an ecosystem and why every organism is important. If one part of the web is removed, say the algae disappears, the whole system could collapse. So let's summarize. Food webs are diagrams that show how energy moves in an ecosystem. They combine multiple food chains into one interconnected web. In our coral reef food web, algae is the producer, clownfish and snails are the primary consumers, large fish are secondary consumers, and sea turtles are tertiary consumers. By analyzing food webs, we can identify each organism's role based on its feeding relationship. Thanks for tuning in to 5th grade life science. Until next time, keep exploring the amazing ways life connects and thrives in our ecosystem. See you soon.